Most parents teach kids to walk away, and that is right most of the time. But there are moments where sometimes walking away just simply isn't an option. Today I'm going to give you 4 situations where pushing back might just be the right option. And stick around for the last one because it is a little bit of a controversial take and I'd like to see your opinion. Hi, I'm Jake. I've been coaching kids martial arts for over a decade. I've been training myself for coming up 20 years and I'm a frontline security officer, and most importantly, I'm a dad. Now, before we hop into the 4 different situations, I want to clarify something. When I say pushing back, I don't necessarily mean punching, kicking, hitting, or getting into that aggressive, violent situation. Because safety is so heavily dependent on the space we create between us and that confrontation. And think about push as like a reset. We're creating that space to then maybe go back to other options that didn't work in the first place, or just to get away. And we want to get away, that is the goal. We don't want to be in confrontation. But sometimes it's not safe to just walk away because you might be putting yourself in a more vulnerable position. And I do clarify our safe zones in another video, so make sure you do watch that, just to have a deeper understanding of why sometimes pushing back is super important. Okay, point number 1, and I'm going to hop straight into it. This might rattle a few feathers, but it's when you've been physically assaulted. Okay, if you've been physically assaulted, sometimes it is important to push back. Because what we need to do is we need to make sure that we can get into a position to use other resources, to even run away. If you just go to run away after being physically assaulted and you're turning your back onto someone, you could be putting yourself in a more vulnerable position than what you were when you first got assaulted. I understand the term people say, like, kids will be kids, and they think roughhousing is a normal part of like growing up. And whilst I agree roughhousing is a normal part of growing up, where you can wrestle and push around your mates, there's a difference between intentional assault. When bullying goes from the step up from being verbally abused or being belittled, excluded, whatever it looked like, to actual physical assault, sometimes standing your ground and pushing back is the most important thing we can do. And I don't mean getting into a fight, but to let somebody know that I'm not going to let you get close to me, that I'm going to hold my ground. What this does is it shows a level of body language and confidence that you attacking me or physically assaulting me is something that I'm not going to let happen. That I'm setting this boundary, that I need to create space and go back to my other resources. Like I said before, I'm not saying we should go back and punch the kid. I know that might be some common advice for parents telling their kids, if you're being bullied, just go up and punch the bully as hard as you can because they won't do it again. But what about the consequence? You've got to think about that as well. It's not just as simple as you punch them, they're going to leave you alone. There's a consequence for that behavior. Every action has a reaction. And I think that we have more options, and if we train, we have different resources, tools to be able to just stay safe, avoid conflict, and get home safely. Point number 2 is when you've said stop, you've set clear boundaries, and they've ignored that. Let's create an example. Somebody has threatened you. So they've shown intent by having a threat. And you've said stop. And they continue to come forward, so you've done the appropriate thing, you've taken your steps back, you've created more distance, you've said stop. And they've repeatedly ignored your boundary setting. I think it's important to stay true to your boundaries, because if you set a boundary and you let that person cross that boundary, they're learning, they're collecting evidence that it's okay for me to constantly push this person's boundaries, because there's no risk, there's no outcome or punishment for if I just keep pushing this person's boundaries. So sometimes we need to hold to our boundaries. So we're not just going to push someone for no reason. I mean a physical space boundary. You've told someone, after they physically threatened you, to don't get near me, to stay over there, and they're coming in, after verbally threatening you, I would push them. I'd create space. Be like, hey, I said don't come near me. And I know some parents might not agree with that, but one of the main reasons in my class why kids respect me as a coach is because the boundaries of the class, or the rules of the class, are consistent for everybody. When you push that boundary, where you push that rule, there is a punishment. And it's not a hard punishment, it's just, okay, you got to sit in the corner for a minute, but it's consistent that if you misbehave in the classroom, you have a punishment. And if I was to waver on that, if the however many kids I have, 30 to 10 kids, depending on the day, see me waver on one kid, they're going to be like, hey, he let that kid go. That kid was misbehaving, so I'm going to get away with that as well. It also creates a lot of self-belief and confidence when you're able to stay true to your boundaries. This is such an important skill to be able to pass down onto your kids. And if them holding their boundaries is a little shove, I'd be quite happy to get the call from my school to be like, hey, your kid's pushed another kid. And I'd be like, oh, okay, why? And I'm like, oh, because he was threatened and he told him to stop coming near him, and then he pushed him to create distance, and then he went away. Yeah, okay, what's the problem? Anyway, I understand there's a little bit of divide. Not all parents will agree with any type of push, but I think there is a time and place for it. Okay, so if you've enjoyed the video so far, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell. And let me know down in the comments, when do you allow your kid to lay a hand on someone else? And I don't take this lightly at all, but I think these situations are fair and we're using an appropriate use of force. We're not going into a punch or a kick or a takedown. We're just pushing to create space. Point number 3, and like the first two, they are kind of connected, and this is a specific situation where they haven't listened to your boundary, that maybe you've been physically assaulted at this point already, or maybe the threats happened and you can kind of see in the body language that the person's coming near you aggressively. This is appropriate time to use it. It's when we're physically backed into a corner or there's multiple attackers. Okay, so this might be more applicable for a bullying situation. If there's mass group coming in and you feel trapped and you can't walk away, there's no physical exit. How are we going to walk away? And yes, you should try just to walk through the crowd, but if they push you back or you physically can't go anywhere, you're feeling that intimidation, I think a little shove to create some space, to create an opening, is an appropriate time where pushing back is encouraged by me. If you're backed into a corner, you got nowhere to go, there's multiple people around you, you find where there's the biggest gap and you push the person away from that gap and you get away. If there's multiple people, we run. Okay? And if it's just one person, you back up against a wall, we got to understand our situational awareness. We got to know where to go. Even if we just get pushed and our head hits the back of the wall, there's a big risk there. We want to take away that risk. So being able to push someone to create space to get away is completely fine. And I think it's justifiable. In a self-defense situation, you've got nowhere to go. I was unable to execute the options of walking away because I had no option to walk past. You can try that. If the person pushes you back up against the wall, then 100% we push back, because in that case, you've set your boundaries, they haven't listened to it, you've been physically assaulted, and then you've got nowhere to go. So that ticks all 3 boxes in my mind. Point 4, which is a controversial one. I guess this is probably just who I am as a person, and I probably wouldn't suggest this to everyone. There are other options to go down, but sometimes in some settings, this is crucial. This is when someone vulnerable is being targeted. Now, I wouldn't always teach your kid to fight other people's battles. I don't think that's appropriate. But when there is a situation where maybe there's multiple people on one person, I think we should use as much resources as possible. If it's calling for help, getting more people, having physical presence, getting on your phone, calling someone, if it's anything, we need to do something. But sometimes there is a situation that might present itself where that person is at such a high risk of being physically hurt. Sometimes we need to intervene. Sometimes we just need to push that person away so that other person can run. And I understand this shouldn't be applied to every situation. This should be once you've called for help, you've tried to get back up, you've exhausted all options, but this person is at such a high risk of being severely injured, we just need to intervene. And I understand the controversy. I think maybe this comes from my role of being a security officer, and I understand that if someone is being assaulted, sometimes you just need to come in and intervene. We just need to step in if someone is vulnerable and they're being attacked and there's no other help available. You've went through all the other resources. Maybe you're the only factor that can step in to help this person from being seriously hurt to the point where they might be hospitalized, permanently damaged. I think in that rare scenario, it probably won't happen in your whole lifetime, but if it does, if my kid was ever presented with that situation, I would like him to be able to intervene if, and this is a big if, that it's safe for him to do so. If there's weapons, multiple people to the point where it's not just 2-on-1 and we're not even out the playing field, I think use the other options. So that's pretty controversial. And I also believe this isn't something we're going to teach directly. We're not going to tell our kid that you need to step in if there is someone vulnerable being attacked. This comes from personality traits. This comes from someone being confident, understanding their own abilities, knowing that this person is vulnerable, that they're being attacked, and knowing that we have options to go down, and sometimes it comes to the last resort and we need to go use that. So whilst I'm not directly going to be teaching my kid this, indirectly I'd like him to have the values and the principles to be able to execute this type of behavior if he was ever presented with it. So just to quickly recap, the 4 points are being assaulted, boundaries have been ignored, we're physically trapped, and someone desperately needs our help. Now, pushing back is never the first move. We have so many other options, and pushing back is still quite a low physical use of force option, but sometimes it's crucial to be able to do it for our safety or maybe someone else's safety to give a push back. And it's important that we know when and how to do it safely, and this is what I'm teaching in my school community. I'm teaching a technique where we learn how to push back, protect ourselves, be able to create that distance effectively and in a fun manner that our kids are going to do it without that serious self-defense kind of approach. So let me know what you thought down in the comments below. Where do you draw the line for your kid? What are you teaching them? Is it appropriate to push? Is a high use of force option something you teach, or do you teach them to never lay your hands on anyone? Okay, I'd be interested to know. And if you like this video, you might also like this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you next time.